Hey, how you doing? I'm doing just fine myself. You know, not too bad, not too great either. Only because I'm just a little bit sick, so, little forewarning if you hear me kind of coughing here and there between the video, I can't really help it. I don't know what the hell it is I have. I don't feel like shit, but my throat feels dry and the cough I have is dry, and then whenever I do cough, it just kind of goes on for a pretty good little while. But anyway, so that out of the way. We are back in Minecraft yet again, which comes as a surprise to nobody. I mean, if you've seen what all my channel consists of, that's pretty much all I do is Minecraft videos. And for all of my regular subscribers, of course you're going to be a little bit disappointed over the fact that I haven't returned to my gigantic cruise ship project in a while. And for those of you who may not be, subscribers, and you may just be some random viewer that clicked on this video just off pure interest, what I'm talking about, my super cruise ship project, my subscribers would know would be this. Kind of my claim to fame as to how my channel has so many subscribers is because this is one of my pinnacle projects, but as the title and the thumbnail of the video will have, of course, told you by now, we are unfortunately not looking at that, the gigantic cruise ship project at the moment. And if I had to admit it to you, reason being is because I've been working on this project that you see in front of you more than I have the big cruise ship project for so long, because I've been trying to get this one built up. Because if I had to be honest with you, this, what they call a traction city project of mine is my second most favorite build alongside the cruise ship and just about everything else I've built. And if you do take a little bit of interest in the gigantic cruise ship you just saw, I do have previous videos that I've made showing you what all I've done to it, kind of like a progressional time-lapse series of videos of me adding things and just kind of keeping you updated on the build. But anyway, so like I said, we are going to be focusing more on the this what I called a traction city project, what you see right here in front of you. Now, as the title of the video would have said, this is a I call it my Mortal Engines project. And for those of you who don't know what Mortal Engines is, it is a movie that is just, recently released on DVD. And I would imagine that the majority of you who are watching this video probably heard of it, seen it, or are kind of curious as to what this is. So you probably may either be a fan of the Mortal Engines movie, or you might not be. And I guess if I had to mention it to you, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's because the movie critics kind of gave it a bad rap for its, what they say, basic plot, air quotes, basic plot. And then, of course, there's the majority of you who might be fans of the movie, such as myself, because I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, regardless of what the critics say. So, of course, I'm still going to say, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I would suggest you, look it up. Take a look at it, watch it. Because it took enough interest from me to come back here in Minecraft and try to build a Mortal Engines styled project as to what you see here in front of you. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything of the movie for you, only for one thing, but it's really nothing ridiculous. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, traction cities is what they call these gigantic mobile cities that you'll see in the movie. And it's kind of a joke, or more of a pun within the name, because, they're gigantic cities stacked on top of themselves, slapped on tracks, and then sent moving across the wasteland. And, taking inspiration from the gigantic cities that you would see in the movie, I, of course, came over here into Minecraft and tried to build my own. Now, mine is unlike anything of what you would see in the movie. It's not a direct replica of any city from the movie, or even the books for that matter. So this is entirely my own custom design. I made up this entire thing. And, of course, you'll probably be kind of concerned as to what the idea was behind this, design of mine, considering the fact that the front of it looks like a ship, and the middle of it kind of looks like a ship. And if I had to kind of give you a little bit of detail as to what my motives or what the ideas going through my head were at the time, alongside the gigantic traction cities that you would see in the movie, there are smaller traction towns that you would see. And these traction towns are more of an improvised mobile settlement because they look more like that they were pieced together by random buildings, skyscraper structures, barns, the ruins of structures and stuff of that nature. So I kind of decided to take more of that design scheme and implement it into my overall attraction, my overall design. And the fact that it does kind of look more like it was pieced together by the remnants or the remains of what were once shipwrecks. And if I had to kind of give you a little bit of a detailed rundown as to everything you would see here in the exterior, that's going to require us to move back up front. So now we're back up front, taking a look at the face or the insignia of my Attraction City project, because the front, I think if I had to tell you in the movie, it kind of seems like the front of Attraction City is kind of like like I said, insignia. Its face, or the part of it that you would remember most if you ever encountered a city, hypothetically, got chased down by it and somehow escaped. So anyway, like I said, my overall city being pieced together by the remnants of ships, of course you can immediately tell that the front of it has the bow and the superstructure of what looks to be a naval destroyer, or a cruiser, or, battleship, or whatever the hell you would like to classify it as. But more or less, if I had to kind of give you a rundown as my thoughts on it, I took it as to be a destroyer that had its, main battery gun replaced with what looks to be like the turret from an old school battleship. Four guns, and you got a couple of automated, not even automated, I mean, automatic, high caliber, cannons up on top. Those are cargo hatches, those are added, I guess you could say. And you got spotlights across the roof, considering the fact that it's no longer at sea, it's more on land, because there's also a couple of spotlights above the tracks. And if I actually had to kind of do something a little interesting here, just for the sake of detail, if I switch it to nighttime real quick, I haven't done the ones up top, but I decided to kind of give the illusion that the spotlights above the tracks were actually working, because you can see, to the right and left. I mean, of course, all I did was just throw torches on the ground. But you kind of get the gist that the spotlights are up there and their beam is shining down, and they've got a spot lit on the ground. So it's just kind of like the overall illusion that they actually have a beam that's shining at a distance and, putting a spot of light on the ground. So just a little interesting piece of detail for you. Now, let me switch it back to daytime real quick and kind of get on with the showcase. So, let's see, I'm going to have to fly a little bit down the side here, because the front, as we've clarified, is a destroyer. And kind of like not as much of an interesting component, but a certain middle portion of the overall Attraction City build of mine here. This is like a certain, or just a random section, like the middle section of a ocean liner that they found and slapped behind the destroyer to kind of play the role as housing, internal storage, well, not storage, but like internal structure, and it pretty much has all the stuff you would find inside of a cruise ship. So, and also some citizens of the city would live in the balcony cabins and all that good stuff. And let's see. Another ship-like location on board the Attraction City is when you come towards the rear, you'll come to find what looks to be a piece of a aircraft carrier. And, well, hold on a second, I got a burp coming up. A little bit underwhelming, but anyway. So yeah, they found, well, hypothetically speaking, they found the ruins of an aircraft carrier that was kind of split in half. They took the stern of it, because it's the one that had the engines and all that stuff inside of it, which has more of a vital, function to it that they could use to build their overall Attraction City. But then they decided to somehow lift the ass end of this aircraft carrier, mount it to the frame of the Attraction City, and kind of use it as more of a solid improvised, flight deck, because in the movie Mortal Engines, I should say it is a post-apocalyptic movie. So fighter jets, ground vehicles, cars, trucks, pretty much modern society as we once knew it, no longer exists anymore. So everything is like improvised, pieced together, rebuilt, and most of the gigantic engines run on steam. But they do still have, aircraft in the form of, high-speed blimps, or as they call them, airships. So of course, with this aircraft carrier piece being, an improvised flight deck, they could still they could still land airships and, other improvised aircraft on the back of it because, believe it or not, some of the biggest traction cities in the movie Mortal Engines actually have, landing pads and airships and, a whole fleet. Well, maybe not so much of a fleet, but somewhat of a small squadron of, like, aircraft for defense and stuff like that because there are still, like, wartime strategies within the post-apocalyptic universe of Mortal Engines. Now it's kind of time to talk about some of the little more of random but still pretty nifty details on, upon my Traction City project. And first and foremost, I guess the one thing I should say right off the bat is that, I guess within the parameters or guidelines, well, not even guidelines, but I guess within the rules of fan fiction, the one part about this Traction City that wouldn't exactly make sense with the actual movie and even the books for that matter is I intentionally designed it, well, not designed it, but made it more along the lines of what it would be like if it were an American Traction City, something from the US. So that's kind of the one part that doesn't make sense because, in the actual books in the movie, the North American continent is believed to be uninhabitable because of a certain something. That's all I'm going to say for those of you who haven't seen it. But anyways, so I guess if I had to kind of show you some of the iconic features. I cannot speak today. So, iconic features. So yeah, some of the most iconic features that would distinctly make this Traction City, very notable to be an American city is the fact that first and foremost, I have a, scaled down, smaller, smaller detail, well, yeah, a scaled down model of the White House. So, of course, it's not properly scaled, it may not be 100% accurate, but still, just by looking at it, right off the bat, anybody could probably instantly tell that, hey, this is the White House. And, I mean, I didn't exactly look up blueprints for it. All I really did was just kind of look up some Google images of the White House and try to get some front and rear pictures of it. And I do have this one side built, but I haven't got the other side built. This is, based on the pictures I found, this is kind of what the side looked like. It had like some big archway windows in the middle, and then it just had the standard rectangular windows on the sides. The rear is pretty much the same as the front, except for the fact rather than having the curve, like the iconic, curve, or the Oval Office, I guess that's where it would be. It has more of this, what could you call it? More of like a not a gazebo, but I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna call it the back porch because I'm a simplistic, not very well educated dumbass. Alright, so, yeah, that's pretty much the back of the White House. And, let's see here. Ooh. There is another thing that makes it iconically American, other than the fact that there are a couple of American flags just kind of littered all over this thing. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a pop quiz on you. For any of you who might actually be die-hard Americans. If you had to take a look at this symbol, or this shape, or this overall diagram, on the side of the exhaust funnels that I have coming off at the top of my Traction City, do you think you could possibly, tell me what this, icon is from, or what this logo is from? It's from something American, it's something very iconic, and it's something that the president uses. Let that be kind of a big giveaway, what the president uses. I'll kind of give you a few seconds to kind of think up something. Now, for those of you who may, for those of you in the UK or maybe outside the United States that watch my videos, this might be a little bit difficult for you, but hey, you might still know it. Alright, if you typed it down in the comments, or if you're just kind of sitting here trying to ponder or trying to figure it out, you might know it, but you just can't get it off the tip of your tongue. This is actually kind of the blue wave and American flag symbol that that Air Force One has on its rudder, or its big tail fin. So yeah, I guess in a way of putting it, you could say that whenever they were building this Traction City to kind of give it some American, what's the word? I don't know, some American features or, some stuff from American items. They decided to take the rudder off the wreckage of Air Force One, split it in half, and slap one side of it on this side, and of course the other funnel would have it on the other side, but I haven't copied it over yet. So I just kind of figured that'd be kind of a very nifty little detail that maybe a majority, can't really see all that well, but it's there to say the least. I figured it'd be kind of an interesting touch. So that's pretty much most of the iconic American features on board this Traction City project. Now we're going to go into the belly of the beast. And what I mean by the belly of the beast, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, just to kind of make it sound a little bit more interesting to you, bigger cities eat smaller cities, or smaller towns. That's all I'm going to say. Now for those of you who have seen the movie, you know exactly what you're getting ready to see. And this is, of course, probably one of the only locations on board this overall city project of mine that is, thoroughly detailed and damn near almost complete. And this is going to require me to put on some potion of night vision to kind of give you a better view. So once you get past the teeth that would open up to function as an improvised ramp to pull other cities in, I was going to build a small town inside of it, but I haven't, come up with a complete, design for one. But I'm still having to put all the the deconstruction equipment, saws, buzz blades, claw machines and stuff like that. But that's these little rails up top, that's what they'd be mounted to. And as they're tearing apart the city, I guess if I had to kind of make it a little bit more different, or make my city a little different compared to what you see in the movie, they actually, delicately disassemble small towns, take the time to unbolt stuff, salvage, vital equipment, machinery, electronics, and stuff like that. And then as they, disassemble certain pieces, then the cranes and the claws would come in, pick up the pieces that they don't need, send them along down the rail towards the furnaces, dump them in this pit, which I am still yet to build the conveyor belt, that would feed the scrap metal into these furnaces, which would melt it down to create heat, to boil water, to create steam, to power the engines, which are another compartment back that way. But in case you didn't really get a good enough view, once you get, a little bit past the small town that's supposed to be here, you kind of get the boarding terminal where, that's the boarding terminal where they would evacuate the citizens of whatever small town they've captured, and, give them the opportunity to be, registered or made a citizen of the bigger city, get employment, get a job, have shelter, food, and all that good stuff, because they're not barbarians, they're sane, humanity is, still sane and, somewhat respectful and, still have morals about them, but not everybody. But my city, to say the least, is, civilized. So, this would be kind of like the control room, or the control hub for all of the machinery that would be disassembling the small town. Nothing really fancy inside there. But this little platform here is where the citizens of the captured city, or the captured town, would be escorted onto here, checked, patted down, make sure they're not carrying any weapons, or don't have any hostile intentions to blow up the city. Then as they kind of go down the line and get some stuff confiscated if they have any contraband that's not allowed, then you would go in here, get your name and age, your weight, and all that stuff. You just become registered as a citizen of the city. Then you would pick whatever elevator shaft you want to go up. You go up. You come up here, and then technically speaking, you are now within the lobby of what would be within the cruise ship section. And this is kind of where you could disembark to go explore the rest of the city. And of course, the city isn't exactly complete, which is over in that section. And you know what? I guess I should do a little bit of a close-up here. I'm actually going to start from the side and then kind of go work my way in. Now, between the aircraft carrier and the cruise ship section, this is kind of where it actually takes the actual visualizations as to what resembles a full-blown traction city compared to what you'd see in the movie. Now, it works like a tier system. So the bottom tier would, of course, be engineering and mechanical stuff. Second tier would be more of like industrial, power grids, electrical, resource handling and all that stuff. Then once you get above that, you kind of get into your more of your civilization tiers. Like this tier here has most of the, has some detail. Where, say, like, if you were making your way through from the lobby and made your way through, like, an exit that would open up here, there'd be some buildings and stuff tucked away under this wraparound highway. Because there are, small carts and carriages, motor carriages that still move people around from one side of the city to the other, as to what you'd see in the movie. So I kind of adopted that idea for my overall city. So as you're working your way through here, of course, this tier kind of looks more like a small, kind of like a small suburban town square. You got a couple of gift shops, restaurants, some hotels, apartment complexes, and even a building that would kind of resemble Town Hall here in the middle, because I'm going to refit my night vision to get a better view here. Because, walking around Town Hall, you got yourself the whole kind of like ovalish, walkway. There'd be some other buildings and stuff kind of tucked away under this tier. I got another building hiding back there. And then once you kind of get back towards the middle, you'd kind of go through here into more of an enclosed sector. Kind of like this gigantic skyscraper piece here. And then the next tier above that would be more of the business and financial district with, bigger buildings. It's more of a double tier because it's a split level that allows taller buildings to be added and all that good stuff. And then the split level here, you'd have to go back to using smaller buildings, businesses, maybe a school, a museum, and all that stuff would be tucked away over in here. I mean, you can probably get the idea that I've got all this planned out. All I got to do is just get around to these certain sections and just add the stuff, or just build it as to where everything's going to be. Now, let's see here. And I guess before I go down into the engine bay, which is kind of like the last, major key section of the Traction City that I have done here, these cranes that you see here on both sides, it's got one on the other side, which is perfectly symmetrical to this side. For those of you who have seen the movie, you will of course know that the small town at the very beginning that gets chased down by the bigger city had like these weird crane things hanging off the side of it. So I adopted that design or that piece of machinery because I kind of figured that the function of what these cranes would be for these for some of these cities or some of these towns, would they kind of function more of like a mining platform or a harvesting platform, kind of like, because they have a pivot, what are they called? I can't think of the word. Oh yeah, a hinge, that's what I'm thinking of, a hinge, kind of like a door hinge. It pivots on a gigantic hinge down here towards the bottom, and the top of it would kind of arch down and become horizontal with the ground. And I would imagine that within this crane structure here, it would have drilling rigs, harvesting equipment, maybe some saws to chop down some trees and stuff like that as it's moving along. So maybe it's like to make it a little bit more self-sufficient, rather than having to rely on capturing and dismantling smaller towns to keep the furnaces fed and keep the steam up for the engines to keep running. They could possibly get lucky enough to find fossil fuels, maybe. Being kind of like an American, what's the word? An American stereotype is what I'm trying to put it. But anyway, and then alongside like the saw machines, as they chop up and harvest trees, it would feed the wood into a conveyor system that would feed it into the furnaces because it's also something burnable. Maintain heat. So, rather than having to rely on just, dismantling smaller towns, they could just, chop up some wood whenever it needs it and just feed it into the furnaces to keep the fires going. Just kind of a little bit more of a functional touch that I thought would, if it were real, it would make it a little bit more, sufficient or efficient, as I guess I could say. Now, as we go back down in here into the digestion bay, which is what they call it, once you get past the twin furnaces that you have here in the middle, if you kind of want to see, I do have like a lot of piping, some scaffolding, and just some overall plumbing for the steam and moisture and other kind of gases and stuff to make their way throughout the city. And let's see, there are primary pipes or steam pressure lines that would be go through this bulkhead and be fed into the engines. And the engines are probably one of the more unique features about my Traction City because they don't really look like steam engines. Though then again, a steam engine could almost really look like anything if you think of it correctly. Or not even correctly, but if you just have a creative enough imagination. I'm going to equip my night vision here. Oh boy, now it's really bright. Oh boy. I'm dying. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, the coughs. But anyway, so this is always kind of hard to do, or always kind of hard to get a good look at these engines, because the part that kind of makes them, unlike any steam engine you would regularly see is because they kind of look more like gigantic diesel engines that you would find in a ship. Now, I didn't do that intentionally, although I did intentionally make it look like an internal combustion engine. And if I had to kind of give you just some, made-up details, well, the only part that's not made up is the fact that there's 4 of them. There's 4 engines here, and they kind of look like that they would be gigantic V10 engines, because there's 5 cylinders on each side, and, you still got the 4 of them. All 4 of them are V10s. You have what would kind of look like a generator in between both of them, and then the actual turbo-electric generators would be behind them, which would power each individual, track assembly. And that would ultimately be kind of like the drivetrain that gets this city to move. Now, of course, the engines run on steam, so they would be their steam. The steam pressure would be injected through like the intake manifolds up top. All 4 engines would have their own plumbing or their own pipeline that gets fed with steam. Then the steam would be, forced into the cylinders, which I'm still yet to build inside of them. But I have went as far as to actually try to make some redstone pistons. Now, it's kind of a funky little system because I tried to make it try to build it in a way that this dual piston setup made them look like that they were connected and were a whole singular entity as being a gigantic piston inside of a large cylinder. And I also had the idea of making it to where, hypothetically, if it were real, engineering staff members could actually make their way through a hatch right here and walk down the middle to get an eyes-on visualization of the crankcase or the crankshaft, and actually see the pistons in motion to make sure that everything internally is working correctly. And let's see here, by the power of editing magic, after initiating the repeater circuit, things get a little bit noisy and maybe a little bit buggy, or the frame rate might just die a little bit. Oh, my night vision ran out. So yeah, I actually have them all wired up to where each individual piston moves, and I did a little bit of an offset trick to where the pistons actually do a proper wave motion, being like an offset time, as to what like a real-life internal combustion engine would look like. So as you can see, either side has the whole wave effect, starting from the front, working their way back, and both the left and the right, wave at 2 different times rather than being in complete synchronization. So, yeah, I actually, like I said, I went as far as to, redstone these things to make it all the more interesting. So there you have it. That's my Mortal Engines project, or just about everything that I've gotten done with it so far. So, of course, I would imagine that there's only very few of you that take interest in this. And maybe for those of you who just watch this purely over the fact that it's a Minecraft video or a Minecraft build, this is completely unlike anything you probably have ever seen before. A city, like a mobile, well, it's not exactly mobile because it can't move in Minecraft, but, by definition, it is a mobile city. So, hey, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person to make one of these in Minecraft, but shit, now that you've seen this, now you have a good idea as to what you could go build, for the sake of your own entertainment. And hell, something I've been thinking about doing, which is something that you could also do, to kind of spark some laughs or spark some concern about a certain something. If you are in like a Minecraft roleplay community, whether it be like a city RP or whether it be more of a congressional RP, because if I had to kind of give you some details as the one I'm in, a group of friends within the same map build their own city, their own military, and their own, weapons and stuff, and, It's more or less kind of like a battle RP, where whether you want to make a peace treaty with another city or another nation, as they say, or if you want to go to war with another one, or commence trading with another one. If you're in an RP like that, if you wanted to really kind of mix it up a little bit, why don't you, in secrecy, build yourself a traction city? Because, still by definition, it is a city. So build yourself one. It doesn't even have to look like this. It can look like anything, just so long as it looks like that it can move, whether it be on wheels or tracks. And then whenever you reveal it to the rest of the community, just be all like, yep, here's my city. I would imagine a lot of them are going to be like, what the hell is that? I haven't revealed mine yet to my community, but I would imagine it's going to be something funny. And whenever I get around to doing that, I may very well record that and show it to you. So, now with all that mumbo-jumbo out of the way, I guess that pretty much sums up today's video. It's something different. Of course, for my subscribers, it's not the gigantic cruise ship project, but here at some point or another, I'll return to it, once I get this one, or get this traction city built up enough. So, anyway, you don't have to like, you don't have to subscribe, I don't really care about that stuff. It's all up to you, whether you want to or not. And, as I say before, and I shall say it again, you take care, and I'll see you next time, and see you whenever.